4,000 years ago, the world was not ready for what was about to happen. In the northeast of Africa, life was very difficult. There were many threats that could take your life at any moment, whether it was a wild animal or a neighbor who wanted your land. But in the middle of this desert, there was an oasis that would change history forever. We're talking about the Nile River, one of the longest rivers in the world. Its waters watered the land so much that the Egyptians could grow all the food they needed. And this is where the first great Egyptian civilization began. After many years, this small village became a large kingdom that lasted over 3,000 years. This is the entire history of Egypt, Part 1. Do you want to become immortal? Well, if you're watching this video, you're already on the right track because only legends know the secret of immortality. So here are some tips to help you become immortal. First, subscribe to our channel and press the bell so you never miss any of our videos. Now, let's start. As we have said before, everything started with the Nile River. Thanks to it, the first villages arose, and as more and more people arrived, these villages became cities and later kingdoms. The first dynasty of Egypt lasted from around 3100 BC to around 2800 BC. The most important pharaoh of this time was King Narmer, who managed to unify Upper and Lower Egypt under his rule. King Narmer is often credited with uniting the two lands and establishing the first dynasty. However, due to the lack of historical records, there are many doubts about his reign. But without a doubt, he was an important ruler in the history of Egypt. After him, many kings came and went, but each left a mark on the kingdom. For example, King Djoser was very interested in architecture and built huge buildings made of stone, something that had never been done before. He built what is known as the Step Pyramid, the first pyramid ever built. During the Third Dynasty, Egypt entered its so-called Old Kingdom. This period, marked by political decentralization and economic prosperity, lasted from around 2680 BC to 2180 BC. During the Old Kingdom, Egypt reached its greatest territorial extension. Many pharaohs came to power during this time, but the most outstanding was Sneferu, the second pharaoh of the Fourth Dynasty, considered the builder of the true pyramids. He commissioned the construction of 3 pyramids, one of which is the Bent Pyramid. But the one who really shone was Khufu, son of Sneferu, who built the largest pyramid of all, the Great Pyramid of Giza, which is the only remaining member of the ancient world. It is truly impressive to see how, even after all this time, it still stands. But that was not enough for some rulers. Pharaoh Khafre, son of King Khufu, tried to beat his father's record, but he couldn't quite do it. However, his pyramid is almost as impressive as his father's. On the other hand, Menkaure, Khufu's grandson, built the smallest of the 3 pyramids. Although these 3 pyramids are the most famous, they were not the only ones built. In total, around 115 pyramids were built during this period. However, only 100 of them remain today. Another of the great constructions of the Old Kingdom was the Sphinx, a gigantic statue with a lion's body and a pharaoh's head. It is estimated that it was built during the reign of Pharaoh Khafre, although no one knows exactly why. In addition to these great constructions, the Egyptians developed many other inventions. They created papyrus, a type of paper made from reeds that grew along the Nile River. They also invented a system of writing with hieroglyphics, which allowed them to keep records of their history and culture. They made great advances in mathematics and astronomy, and they also developed a very advanced medical science for the time. Thanks to all these advances, the Egyptians were able to develop a great civilization. But it did not last forever. Around 2180 BC, Egypt experienced a period of instability that led to the collapse of the Old Kingdom. However, order was soon restored and a new era began, the Middle Kingdom. This period lasted from around 2055 BC to 1650 BC and was characterized by the emergence of a new capital, Thebes. During this time, Egypt was ruled by a series of nomarchs, local officials who took control after the collapse of the central government. However, by 2000 BC, Egypt was once again united under the rule of a single pharaoh. The most important pharaoh of this period was Mentuhotep II, who established the 12th dynasty and reunited Egypt after a century of division. During the Middle Kingdom, Egypt enjoyed a period of peace and prosperity. The economy flourished, trade expanded, and the arts and sciences prospered. Many great works of literature and poetry were created during this time, as well as important temples and monuments. However, the Middle Kingdom did not last forever. By 1650 BC, Egypt was once again plunged into a period of instability and decline. Once again, local governors took control of the country, but soon the Egyptians would have a new master. The Hyksos invaded and dominated northern Egypt for over 100 years. The Hyksos were a people of Semitic origin who came from the Levant region. They were skilled warriors and horsemen and soon imposed their dominance on northern Egypt. Despite the domination of the Hyksos in the south, the line of native rulers continued. The most important of them was Seqenen-Retau, who managed to defeat the Hyksos and expel them from Egypt. After the expulsion of the Hyksos, Egypt entered a new era known as the New Kingdom. This period lasted from around 1543 BC to 1292 BC, and was marked by the rise of Egypt as a great imperial power. During the New Kingdom, Egypt reached its greatest territorial extension. The Egyptian army, equipped with chariots and archers, conquered lands east of the Nile and as far away as Syria. The most important pharaoh of this period was Thutmose III, who reigned for over 50 years and expanded the empire to the greatest extent. He was a great warrior and conqueror and is considered one of the greatest military leaders in history. But the expansionist policy did not end there. Other great pharaohs followed, such as Hatshepsut, who continued the expansion of the empire to the south and east. However, not everything was rosy. Around 1274 BC, Egypt was invaded by the Hittites, a people of Indo-European origin who came from Anatolia. The Hittite invasion caused serious damage to Egypt, and the country was never the same again. Despite the setback, Egypt continued to be a great power for several centuries. But the truth is that the Hittites greatly weakened the Egyptians. Later, Egypt would suffer another hard blow when it was conquered by the Nubians, a people of African origin who lived south of Egypt. The Nubian conquest was a turning point in Egyptian history. The Nubians were a different people with different customs and traditions, and their rule marked the end of the traditional Egyptian civilization. After the Nubian conquest, Egypt fell into decline. The old ways of life disappeared, and the country was never again as powerful as it had been in the past. Later, the Persians, Greeks, and Romans would dominate Egypt. Finally, in 30 BC, Egypt became a province of Rome, and its fate was sealed. And that's it. The Egyptians who lasted for more than 3,000 years had come to an end. But despite the fact that their empire was gone, their legacy lived on. Their art, their architecture, their culture, all of it continued to inspire people for centuries to come. The Egyptians were a great people who made countless contributions to human civilization. They invented many things that we still use today, such as the paper, the ink, the arches, and the vaults. They also made great advances in medicine, mathematics, and astronomy. Their art and their architecture were unparalleled in the ancient world. The Egyptians were also a very religious people. They believed in many gods and goddesses, and they built great temples and monuments in their honor. Religion played an important role in the life of the Egyptians. They believed that after death the soul continued to live on, and they mummified their dead so that they could be preserved for eternity. The Egyptians were also a very sporting people. They loved to hunt, fish, and race chariots. They also had a great festival called the Festival of Opet, which was celebrated in honor of the god Amun. During the festival, the Egyptians paraded through the streets in costumes and masks and performed all kinds of games and competitions. As you can see, the Egyptians were a very interesting people with a rich culture and tradition. They were great builders, inventors, and warriors. They were also very religious and athletic. The Egyptians were one of the greatest civilizations of the ancient world. They left us an impressive legacy that has lasted for centuries. Today, when we think of Egypt, we think of the pyramids, the Sphinx, and the Pharaohs. These are symbols of a great civilization that once flourished in the banks of the Nile River. The Egyptians were a great people who made countless contributions to human civilization. They invented many things that we still use today, such as the paper, the ink, the arches, and the vaults. They also made great advances in medicine, mathematics, and astronomy. Their art and their architecture were unparalleled in the ancient world. So, this was the entire history of Egypt from its beginnings until it was conquered by the Romans. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss our next videos. Goodbye.